Alright, so today we're going to be processing M81 and M82. This was a shot that I took not too long ago, and we're going to be using PixInsight. And if you haven't already purchased PixInsight or tried it out, you can still request for a free license of the full program. It will be fully functional with all its capabilities, so I encourage you to request a free trial and follow along if you would like. Other programs that we'll be using today are, well, not an actual program, these are plugins, and basically they're a tool action set for Photoshop, and they help make things a little bit easier as far as some of the noise reduction functions and things like that. If you haven't already visited Harry's Astro Shed, he has a great set of tutorials specifically for PixInsight. If you want to go ahead and also look at those, they have newbies, intermediates, and they even have some demos as far as being able to download the files and follow along. And these help me a lot as far as getting to know PixInsight and how things work, and so I encourage you to go check those out. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up our PixInsight. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is integrate all our data. So we're going to go to scripts, we're going to go to batch processing and batch pre-processing. So we're going to go ahead and click there, and we're going to pull up our window over here. So it has a couple things here that you want to kind of look at and make sure that are checked off. So here is where we're going to be adding our biases, darks, flats, and lights. So basically, to add your lights, just click on lights, and then you're going to go to the file folder wherever they are stored. In my case is here, M81, M82. Lights, I'm going to highlight them all, and I am going to click there and open them up. And so it's going to load all of them, and so you're going to do the same thing for the flats. Open those up. Our darks, and close, and grab those, and then our bias, same thing. Go back here, grab our bias, and we're going to load all of these up in here. Okay, so you can easily click through here to see your biases, your bias, your dark, flats, and your lights. So we have all this. So we're not going to go much into anything of cosmetic correction, but since I am using a DSLR camera, just make sure you know which pattern that you or your camera sensor has. For mine, it's a T5i, so it's the RGGB. The debayer method, you're going to leave as VNG, and make sure that we have CFA images clicked. If not, it won't know that they are actually color images from a DSLR camera, so make sure that's clicked. I have optimized darks clicked, generate rejection map, export calibration files, and up bottom fits, I have that checked as well. If you were using master files as far as your bias, flats, and darks, you would go ahead and click these so that it knows not to generate a new master file over here. Okay. As far as our lights go over here, the image registration, I have mine set to auto, 0.3, 500 stars, and I have the noise reduction disabled in this box over here checked out. Okay, I'm going to close that. You can actually also choose to integrate the image, and you can hit apply. And as for my integration parameters, I have average, Winsorized sigma clipping, and our sigma low and high clipping factors over here set at 4 and 3. Now these are kind of generic, and sometimes you get a good integration as far as what your image comes out, and if it doesn't, then we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit about how we can actually go into fine-tuning this. So once all this is checked out, you're going to go ahead and click your lights. You're going to pick a reference frame, just double click it, it would load it over here on the lower right hand side, and then you want your output directory. Where are all these files going to go? And you can click M81, M82. You select the folder, and you can run your diagnostics to see and make sure everything is lined up. And when you're ready, you're going to hit OK. It's going to run its course and produce some files for you. Okay, so I have already had the luxury of doing this, and so I'm not going to go ahead and run through it. And yes, we want to stop the script. So when you actually finish that registering all those files, it's going to produce a calibrated folder where it has all your calibrated frames. It's going to have a master where it produces the master integration, and then also registered all your images that are registered. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the master, and this is the integration that it is going to show us. Okay, so as we had instructed before, it's going to do a light rejection map, a low rejection map, and then your integration. And you can see in just a second all the pixels that are in here that are your noise rejection. So if you for some reason did not like how this integrated, you would go into processes and then image integration, and go to this file and work on the integration from there. For as far as this video, I'm not specifically gearing this one on how to integrate images or calibrate them. It's more of the processing, so you can again visit Harry's Astro Shed, and it has a great tutorial on how to do the image integration. Okay, so we're going to load a couple of our processes here that we normally use, and it's going to be the histogram transformation. I'm going to just drag them over here, and I'm going to open a couple more. The screen transfer function over here, ACR, multiscale transformation, curves, okay, dynamic background extraction I use, and then I'm going to also go to more processes here, and I'm also going to drag the color saturation. So let's drag that right there. So these are the main ones that I use. This screen transfer function is a real neat tool. It kind of auto stretches everything for you to kind of maximize and what it thinks your data could be. So if you click the little symbol here, this is the auto stretch, you'll see all the pixels that have been rejected. Over here, if you zoom in, this is all my noise from my DSLR and all the things that I really don't want showing up in my image at the end. So it automatically does that for you, so I don't need to see it anymore. I'll close it out, and let's see in the low rejection, not much noise showing up there as far as that goes. So I'll close that as well. I'm going to hit this little window, which is, it maximizes my image, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit this button again, the auto stretch button, and it will show us what our data can kind of look like, what's potentially there in our image. So for my DSLR, a lot of times it comes out with this kind of reddish bias, and that's because I've auto stretched it with all the channels locked together. So if you click on it where it's unlocked or unlinked and then stretch it again, it gives you a little bit more natural tone. Now looking at this, we can see a couple of things going on. We definitely have a kind of a gradient going from this corner, from a lighter gradient all the way down to the left corner over here, which is a gradient that I want to remove, and we want to bring out the most of this image. Okay. So as far as the screen transfer function, this does not stretch or apply any of the stretching permanently. This is only for you to visually see it. If you go ahead and reset it, it will go back to what the original image looked like. So let's go ahead and keep it there, and we're going to go ahead and close that out. And in order to remove this gradient, we're going to use our dynamic background extraction. Now it has several windows here, and you can kind of minimize this top one. What we're going to do is sample our whole image, and we mainly want to place sample points in anything that's dark. Now, this particular image is kind of easier to sample because we don't have a lot of nebulosity flowing around in this image. We just have these two galaxies, a lot of empty dark space in the background. So these will be particularly a little bit easier to extract the background versus something with a lot of nebulosity, which we can go into in another tutorial. So we're going to generate some sample parameters. We're going to say we want our samples to be 12 pixels in radius, and we're going to put about 25 rows per sample. And we're going to hit generate. Now, as you can see, it has only generated a couple of sample points there, and it's missing a whole bunch on both ends. So we are going to lower this minimum sample weight, and we're going to hit generate again. And as you can see, more sample points are popping out here. These red sample points are saying that they're red because they are not being included as a sample, and it's showing them as a bad sample. So for me to cover this whole thing up, I'm going to bump this up to 1.5 as a tolerance to include all these red samples, and I'm going to hit resize all over here and then generate again, and it has generated a full image worth of sample points. Okay. Now, if you were to kind of generate the background extraction sample here, you can see that we are taking some samples in our galaxy. Some of these are kind of hanging over stars. So let's do an example of what we're going to subtract all that we don't want, and we're going to hit OK. And now this is going to show you why you need to make sure that you put your sample points in just dark, empty space so that it doesn't create these areas of darkness when we generate the final image. So once this is done running, we're going to show you what happens if that sample point is not in the right place. And it's almost done over here, so let's wait for just a couple more seconds for it to finish up. Okay, so it is going to generate for you. I'm not going to close this because I'm going to show you how this is not completely done. It's going to generate a sample map of what it's subtracting from your actual image over here. And we're going to go ahead and close that out because we don't need it. And now we are going to stretch things again just to see what's there. And of course, because we have sampled some of the points in our galaxy here, we're getting all these dark spots, these areas over here, where that blotchy darkness that you see laying around. Some of these areas are where the sample points are either too close to stars or on actual nebulosity areas. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and discard this because we don't want this. But you will also notice, stepping back on this, that things are a little bit overstretched and a little bit more noisy once we remove the background. And that's okay because it's extracting everything that we don't need, and once we stretch it ourselves, we won't get this noisy at all. Just a side note, whenever we are doing the background extraction, now when we stretch it, we've removed all the biases from it, so make sure you click on the linked button over here and then auto stretch it again, and it will give you a truer color there as far as your background and your galaxy and your nebulosity goes. So let's go ahead and close that and close this, and then I'll show you what I mean by the sample points need to be in the right locations. So let's zoom in a little bit here. What I'm going to do is anything that is actually on our galaxy, I'm going to delete. So I'm going to click these samples and just hit the delete button, and it's going to remove these samples from our galaxy. we definitely don't want anything sampling there because that is areas that we are interested in. So just go ahead and click those off and delete those. If there's a sample point that's too close, you can move it a little bit further away. We're going to drag those. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go around this image and kind of move all these little points around just to make sure that they're not overlined. So what I do is kind of click on them, drag them, just move them around, and just make sure that nothing is hiding underneath them. And so some of them are obvious, but some of them won't be as obvious. And this is a little bit too close to that star, so I'll just move it a little bit to where it's completely dark space. So just kind of going along, moving here. That one's on a star, and so we're going to do all this over here. Just kind of cruise around, get things far away from stars like this one. Just put it over there, put it there, put it there. Some of these are a little bit more obvious, like this one down here, definitely going to be on a star. So we're going to hit pause on our video. I'm going to move all these sample points around where I want them, and then we'll return. Okay, so I've gone around and moved all of my sample points to make sure that they're not on stars or on pieces of my galaxy that I want to preserve there. So if I look all around, everything has been kind of shifted. Well, maybe not so much. There we go. Just to be in empty black space, nothing around my galaxy there. And if you look closely, we still had 3 sample points that are not going to be used. So let's go ahead and bump up the tolerance there to 1.7 and hit the resize, and there we go. So they're all included there. And again, we are subtracting this background from our original image. So we're going to hit execute. And so hopefully this will give us an image that really doesn't have any dark spots because we've placed the samples where they need to be. And if you find that you do get some dark areas, you may need to go back into the original image and move things around a little bit, or add some extra sample points in some areas to get final background extraction that you like. And we're just waiting for the last portion over here to finish up, and then we'll hit the auto stretch button and see what we have. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close. Sorry, not right there. I'm going to X out this background because I don't really need it. And then let's go ahead and open here. This is the screen transfer function. I'm going to have it locked in, and I'm going to go ahead and stretch it and see what we have. And so again, it's going to look overstretched. Let me minimize my original image. It's going to look overstretched, but we definitely don't have these dark areas in our galaxy as we did before. So I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to close the background extraction. Again, this is our original image, and you can click here again to get it to full screen, but I'm going to just keep this on the side, minimize, and keep it open on the side just in case I need it in the future. Now again, if you didn't have it linked, it's going to give you these kind of greenish colors, but if you have everything linked, it's going to show you what it can possibly be. Alright, so we got one galaxy, the other galaxy, and we even have something going on there. So I am going to go ahead and reset this because we're going to manually stretch this data. Okay, so I am going to duplicate this image because I want to make sure if I go wrong anywhere, I have the original one to go off of. So I just drag this tab over here, and it will create a clone. So I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to place that over here so that it's out of the way. And we're going to maximize this again, and I'm not going to be using this much anymore. So let's go to our histogram transformation. So we're going to go back here down on this tab and hit the clone, because this is what we're stretching. And we're going to take our middle slider and go ahead and start stretching. Now, you can't see much of what's happening here unless you hit the live action kind of real-time preview of what it's doing. So you can toggle it on, toggle it off, and again, this is what is going on with your image. So I'm going to do an initial stretch, and where I try to keep my stretching to pretty much is anywhere between these first two vertical lines. So I'll do an initial stretch here, and we're going to hit the square, which is going to apply our function to our image over here. And this will do our initial stretch, and this is our reset button. And again, I'm going to just stretch this just so that this is kind of right in the middle. I hit it one more time, and we'll see what it gives us. Alright, so we have a pretty good image so far stretched out, and if we kind of close, well, let's not close this out just quite yet, but if we zoom in, we can see that it's very nice, low noise. We have our galaxy flowing out there, which is real nice there, and then our other galaxy here. Now, I like the intensity of our background because it's low noise. We're not blowing out stars here. We're keeping the stars small, but there really is a little bit more here to these galaxies to be extracted from this image. So first thing I'm going to do is save this image, because I'm going to use it as my base layer for my background. So I'm going to hit save. We're going to go over here to M81, and I am going to name this M81, M82 background stretch. Alright, and you're going to hit OK. I'm going to save it as 16 bits, and I'm not going to embed anything, so just unclick these and make sure it's 16 bits, and we're going to hit OK. And so that image is saved. Now, let's continue to stretch this to see what we can get from our galaxies over here. So basically, just kind of move in the slider. If you move it too far over, you can kind of bring it back with this slider. But I'm going to go ahead and reset that, and let's start stretching things little by little and seeing if we can get these galaxies to come and pop out a little bit more. So again, trying to keep this there at that middle level for this particular image, and you can toggle it on and toggle it off, and you can see how more of the galaxy is popping out. And so I am going to hit the execute button and see what we have. Okay, close this out. And as you can see, you can hit the undo button over here, and we can see what we started before. Again, if we redo it, we're definitely popping out a little bit more of the galaxy. But as you can see, our background goes from being a nice smooth background, and then a little bit more noise is kind of being generated there. So let's see if we can give it a tiny bit more of a stretch. And then we're also looking at this blue peak. I'm going to go ahead and try to even that out with the red peak to balance the color just a little bit more. So I can kind of zoom in here and make sure that our blue is pretty much in line with the red, and the peaks pretty much align there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out again, and I'm going to hit the execute button there. Alright, and if we kind of undo this, again, it's very subtle, but we're basically trying to stretch this galaxy and the other galaxy down here. So now what you can see is that there is a lot of stretching going on, but not a lot of detail that is being preserved in these images. So let's go ahead and close this out, and we're going to do some more functions over here with our galaxies to try and bring those out. So one of the things that we can do is use this HDR processing tool, HDR multiscale transformation, to bring out things that are hidden here in these cores that are a little bit blown up. So we're going to create some previews and see what we can get. So by hitting by holding Alt and hitting the N, you're going to create a function over here that's going to allow you to drag a box over it, and it's going to create a little preview here. So that is for that galaxy, and Alt N for this galaxy. Alright, and when you click on it, you can just see the different galaxies and where they're at and what's going on. So I'm going to kind of zoom here, zoom out. And you're going to have different parameters, number of iterations. I've kind of worked these out to what I like. I like to use whenever we have bigger structures like this larger galaxy. It seems to work better when I put 6 layers here in one iteration. I'm going to hit the de-ringing button just so that dark circles don't start appearing over my stars. And since we're in the preview button, preview tab, it's not going to apply it fully onto the actual image, but it's going to allow you to just do it only to the preview section. So let's see what that does. And so this is what it does for us. And as you can see, we get some dark ring and kind of real aggressive action. So if we go ahead and back this out and redo it, you can see how things are changing. Now, one thing we can do so that it only applies it to our light areas is to use a mask. So let's go back to our original image, and we're going to hit this button, which is going to extract a luminance layer image. So we have this as our luminance of our image, and we're going to drag this here to the tab side over here, and it's going to apply this red layer. Don't close your mask out because it needs that information to generate and use this mask. The red part, it's what's being blocked out, and the lighter parts, it's what is available for you to do your actions on. So I'm going to go here, mask, and I'm going to remove the mask. Not remove. I'm going to put show mask so it doesn't show it, so I can see the image better. And I'm going to do this iteration one more time, and you're going to be able to see that it will only apply it to the galaxy, mainly the galaxy, and not so much the background. So if we go from there to there, we can see all the dust lanes that are being picked up here on the core, and things are just getting a little bit more detail rather than just blown out and fuzzy. So you can play around with this. If you were to go down to 3 or 4, you can go ahead and hit that button, but you can see what is happening with different settings. 4 kind of gives me all these rings around my stars and really doesn't bring out much for this galaxy. Again, on and off, it's just not doing anything that I like there. So let's keep it at 6 for this galaxy here. And you can see by undoing it, it gives it brings out a good amount of the detail there. Now, if we go to our next galaxy here, alright, we are going to apply 6. Now, this galaxy is smaller, so this value over here is going to be a little bit different than if we applied the original 3 or 4. Now, if we back off and do that, it does somewhat of bringing out some of the detail in the core, but you're going to see if I bring it down to about 4, let's go ahead and hit execute. you're going to see that a lot more of these dust lanes are going to pop out versus what we had there. So I'm liking that a little bit better than basically using the 6 values. So unfortunately in PixInsight you can't use one value for this galaxy and another value for that galaxy. So what I'm going to do is actually duplicate the image, and we're going to drag this out to the side again. I'm going to duplicate the image. Now this duplicate does not have the mask applied to it, so I'll just bring up that mask and apply the mask to that layer as well. So let's go ahead and not show the mask, and for one I'm going to use one value for this galaxy, and then I'm going to go to this image in the back and use a different value for this other galaxy. So let's start with this one up here. We have that one, we said 6 was good, and so I'm going to go ahead and execute this for this particular image, and I'm going to pause our video here and let this kind of take its course. Okay, so the HDR multiscale transformation is done here for our this particular galaxy that we applied it to, and if we kind of blow things up here, let's look at a little bit closer to M81. We do have the changes that we like applied to M81, that galaxy there. If we look at our other galaxy, the 6 values got applied there. So let's go ahead and apply the 4 layers down to our M82. So let's go ahead and hit the execute button. It's going to apply that there. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video again and let it fully run through its processes. Okay, so now M82 is done, but as you can see here, M81 is not what we had hoped for in this galaxy. So that's why we went ahead and kind of did it to both, to 2 separate ones, so that I can keep what I like here for M81 and then also keep here what I like for M82. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our next step over here. So we have here M81, which is what we want this image to kind of be working on, and we're going to do a little bit of a deconvolution. There's different ways to do it. In this particular case, I'm going to do the shortcut and not use a de-ringing mask or point spread function, mainly because these galaxies are very small in my image, and I can kind of in Photoshop later on work on the stars and kind of mask them out so the effects won't be large scale. But if you were doing this in a large nebula, something that had a lot of nebulosity all over the place, you want to do it using the point spread function and a custom star mask for this function. So let's go ahead and hit Alt-N to make a preview on this image. I'm going to drag it here, and let's go ahead, and we are done with our HDR tool. And what the deconvolution is going to do for us, it's going to sharpen things up a little bit. So go to processes, go to process, and let's go to deconvolution and hit the deconvolution there. Now we're going to leave all this as is. We're going to apply de-ringing, and we're going to apply since it has our mask, it's going to only do things more aggressive where it's light and less aggressive where it's dark. So let's do about 25 iterations and see what we get here. And hit the execute, and we're doing this under the preview button. So alright, so you can go ahead and undo and redo, and you can really see how things are starting to sharpen. Again, since I'm not using a star mask and a point spread function, you're going to see all these little dots appearing kind of in some of these stars at the center and cores of the stars, which we'll later mask out in Photoshop. So don't worry too much about it, but going back and forth again. This is kind of blurry, out of focus, and when you hit that deconvolution, things look great there. Alright, so we're going to go to this image over here. Let's look at M82 over here and hit the deconvolution there and see what it does for M82. Okay, so if we take this back, things are a little bit blurry. And again, when we run the 25 iterations with the mask on, with the luminance mask on, you get a nice sharpening of this galaxy. Alright, so what I'm going to do is apply this to the full image. And this may take a while, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this here and let the deconvolution take place. Okay, so we have finished with the deconvolution here for M81 and M82. So let's go ahead and close this out, and let's save these files appropriately. So here's our M81. We're going to say File, Save As. I'm going to hit background spelled wrong, and I'll fix in a bit. But I'm going to put M81, and we're going to say, what have we done to this? We did the HDR, and then we did the convolution. So I'm going to save that. Hit OK. Again, 16 bits, and unclick those. And then we're going to go here to M82. And then I'm just going to switch this here to M82, HDR and decon. Save it, hit OK, 16 bits, and OK. Alright, so for now, this is all we're going to do in PixInsight. We've generated our background image, and we've generated our M82 image here, and then also our M81 image here. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and transfer over to Photoshop and work on the image there a little bit more to kind of merge all three images to make one image. Okay? So let's go ahead and close this out.